Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to replace the AC condenser and the expansion valve on the Jetta. Now the reason I'm replacing it is because the AC has been working, but lately we've been in a nasty heat wave that's been in the high 90-degree Fahrenheit, low 100 degrees, add humidity, and it's nasty out there. And at that point the AC just can't keep up. It's blowing out cool air, but the cool air is doing nothing to it. So I went ahead and took the time. I did some quick diag with my AC lines, which here they are. Unfortunately, I didn't film that stuff, but I did take a picture of the gauges when I was doing it, so I'll go ahead and post it up now. But as you can see, the high side is in the 150 area. On that particular day when temperatures were in the mid 90s, it should have been closer to 200, 210 at most. So the high side is not getting up as much as it should. And then the low side, you see that it's around 50, 55-ish, I think. I don't remember now. The low should not be past high 30s. Like it should, like honestly, it should be like high 30s, 41, 42 PSI at most. For it to be in the low 50s, that tells me that I very likely have an issue with my expansion valve. It's the original one, so I might as well go ahead and replace it. Now, as far as the AC condenser, if you guys watch my video when I went ahead and replaced my headlights, you'll remember that when I pulled off the grill, I noticed that there was a lot of crust in the front on an edge of the AC condenser, and that indicated to me that there was an old leak at some point. I didn't see any fresh leak, so I just assumed that it was old and whatever, it might have been fixed or sealed up at some point. But I'm already doing this. I've already evac'd the Freon from the system, so I don't want to do the work twice. I'm going to go ahead and replace the expansion valve, and I'm going to go ahead and replace the AC condenser at the same time. Now guys, I went ahead and got these parts from FCP Euro. I'll go ahead and put the links to the parts that I used. But here's the AC condenser. This one in particular is a Nissan, and look at that, it even comes with its own O-rings. That's pretty neat. But yeah, basically your lines go in here, and you got your mounting tabs. This tube here is the AC dryer, which comes with it, so that's great. I don't have to replace. I don't have to buy it separately. And then here's the expansion valve. This one is a Denso. You see it here, and this too comes with its own O-rings there. So I had actually gone to Volkswagen and picked up O-rings, but because I didn't know that this stuff came with it, so I figured I'd rather have them and not need them than the other way around. Now guys, there's 1,000,001 videos on how to remove the bumper on the Mark 6, so I'm not going to bore you with that. We're going to skip ahead to the part where we're actually dealing with accessing the AC condenser. Alright, so the bumper cover is off, and now we're left with the actual bumper. So you have a foam section and you have an actual metal section. And we need to get this out in order to access the AC condenser, which you see right back there. In order to remove this bumper, we need to knock out these 10mm nuts. And over on this side, on the frame rail where it attaches, you have 4 on each side, 4 16mm bolts, and a T30 Torx right there on the side. So there's 4 and 1 on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove everything except like the outer top 16mm bolt. Because when I get to that point, I want to be able to hold this by hand, so I can knock that out, and that way it doesn't just fall on the ground. And I almost forgot. So on the underside, there's the outside air temperature sensor. That needs to come out before you go ahead and pull this, because otherwise you're just going to snag on this harness and damage it. So let's go ahead and remove that. Correction, there are 2 T30 bolts on the side. There's one that goes up there on top of the frame rail. There's one at the bottom right there. Alright guys, so here you see the entire AC condenser, and I am learning something new. From the limited view that I had from there, this looked like crust. It's not crust, it's actually oxidation of the aluminum. That's the bare aluminum right there. It's kind of hard to see there. Let me see if I can turn off the light. There you go, it's a little easier to see now. But that oxidation is what caused the paint to flake off. And that's what I was seeing from there. So this actually was not leaking. It was just oxidation. Alright guys, so the next step is to go ahead and pop off these air guides because we need to access plastic behind it, the actual, I guess, radiator shroud that all of this mounts onto. So these things are just held on by three pressure clips, 1, 2, 3 down here. Just pop them off with a flathead screwdriver and they just come right off. Now mine is actually running through under this, so I went ahead and pulled this off. And you see here, all I have to do is pull up on it a little bit. It sits on this groove. Ah! Bang. Like that. And it's out. So now I can go ahead and focus on this thing. We're going to repeat the same thing on that side. I learned to take off this bolt, which I am going to end up removing this whole thing. So there's T30, another T30 bolts there, and a 10mm bolt here. So let's take this off. Back there, there's the access hole right there in order to get to the mounting bolt at the top. So we're going to do that right now. All right, we're making good progress here. So now we have access to all 4 mounting bolts right here. So this can come out now. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and knock out the AC lines. Now remember, I did already have the AC system evacuated, so all the contents are emptied out. Please don't just empty it out to atmosphere. It's not that expensive to have it vacuumed out. Ugh. Yeah, we're gonna have to clean up this the threads on this before we put it back on. Now just use a flathead. Just make sure you don't damage the surface or anything. Oh, oh. Okay. Okay, so now with the lines out of the way, we can go ahead and knock out the 4 mounting bolts, and these are T30. All right, now I'm holding it by hand here at the bottom, so we're just gonna have to push it aside, etc. Whatever we gotta do to get it out of place. I'm gonna try removing these bolts, see if I can get more flex on this. Oh, whoa, like that. All right, so now the radiator. Okay, so that's what those mounting bolts were. They were actually for securing the radiator, because now the radiator just tipped back. So that's good, because now I can go ahead and push it back a little bit further to give me space to get this out. Come on. Aha. Uno. There you go. There you go. Done. Yes, we are definitely going to go ahead and clean this up before I put the new one on. Okay, so I just checked all the dimensions and it does match exactly the same. You have the tabs all in the same position, so all is good. And so the next thing, the only other thing that I want to check is to make sure that the taper at the bottom of the hole of this matches what's on there. Just because a lot of times aftermarket units are not going to have the same taper, and that you could actually have issues with sealing properly. So I notice here that it comes down and then it rolls down into the hole there. So I want to make sure that is the same story here. Yep, we are good. You see it comes down and then it bowls down into the hole there, so we are good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get this mounted in 3, 2, 1. Okay, and just like that, the condenser is done, the bumper is back on and everything. So we're good to go. Now we need to replace that expansion valve, and that hides right down there on the firewall. To make life easier, we're going to go ahead and remove the air box. Okay, so here's what we got. there's the expansion valve right there. And basically it sits like this. See the dish here at the top, and then here's the bolt holes for the lines there. So we're going to go ahead and pull off the lines, and then the mounting bolts for the expansion valve should be these two in the center. Then we'll be able to access the O-rings on the back side of the evaporator core, switch them out, and then good to go. Yeah, this was definitely much easier than the condenser. So you guys see there, I don't see any weird signs of it anywhere, but they are good to go. So let's go ahead and get this replaced now. You see here, I cleaned off the ends of the pipe there. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and replace these O-rings. They look good, but this one in particular, I don't know, they felt a little thin and a little flattened on one side. So I'm like, you know what? These I'm going to replace. So I'm going to go ahead and match them up to the Volkswagen ones that I have here. All right, we are all done here. Expansion valve replaced and the condenser replaced. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the shop and we're going to go ahead and vacuum it out, make sure it holds vacuum, and then recharge Freon. I'll check back with you guys after. All right, guys, I just got back from the shop, and unfortunately, good news and bad news. Good news is that the AC definitely cools a whole lot more now. When I first checked it, it wasn't getting any lower than 53 degrees. It gets down to 45 degrees now, so it feels a whole lot better. But here's the bad news. It doesn't continue cooling. What happens is that it'll actually start cooling, and then at some point, maybe about 4 minutes into it, it stops and it just starts warming up, warming up, warming up. It's still not blowing hot air, but it's not cold anymore for some reason. So I was hoping that it would be just the expansion valve that was causing that, but unfortunately, it could also be the AC compressor. Typically, most AC compressor failures are related to it not compressing. This compressor is compressing, nice, and I can see it on the gauges. Fortunately, I think that what's happening is that when a compressor gets hot, the internal check valve is somehow jamming open. And what's happening is that when it's compressing on one side, it's bleeding off some of the pressure and pushing it back out the low side. Hence why my low was high and my high was low. So yeah, typically that's something that was directly associated with a failed expansion valve, which is the reason why I replaced it. Plus it was cheap. Of course, I'm going to start with a cheaper fix. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I need an AC compressor for this car. But you know what? At least I learned how to do this stuff. This is my first time doing it on this car, so it was still a cool experience. So now I got to look for an AC compressor. Joy. So stick around for part 2 of this. Sometime in the near future, I'm getting a new AC compressor for this car. So please do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe buttons, because I got more stuff coming your way. So hopefully now you will learn how to replace an AC compressor on this car. Thank you so much.